RwandAir Flight 205 was a Canadair CRJ-100 that crashed into the terminal building in Kigali, Rwanda after an emergency landing, killing one passenger. JetLink Express operated the flight on behalf of RwandAir. What happened? How did it crash into the building? Stick till the end of the video to find out. Hello and welcome to Plane Crashes Explained, where we discuss some of the most mind-blowing reasons and facts behind the most heinous plane crashes. Subscribe to our channel and press the bell icon so you don't miss future updates. Without further ado, let's get straight into this. Shortly after takeoff, the crew of a CRJ-100 regional jet discovered that their left engine had become stuck at high power and would not slow down. The pilots returned to the airport for an emergency landing and, unable to reduce thrust on the left engine, taxied off the runway and into the parking area. However, before the passengers could disembark, the aircraft lurched forward, swerved wildly across the parking apron, and plowed into the side of a building, pushing the plane through the VIP lounge wall. One passenger was killed, and several others were seriously injured, including both pilots, who had to be extracted from the wreckage using specialized equipment. A crew of 2 Kenyan pilots accompanied the leased CRJ-100. JetLink also supplied a maintenance engineer who flew with the plane, troubleshooting mechanical issues and performing on-the-spot maintenance. At 37, the captain had already accumulated a respectable 11,500 flying hours. The 27-year-old first officer had completed her training in Australia in 2005 and had accumulated approximately 1,500 hours. By November 2009, these 2 pilots and the engineer had been flying together for a full year with no roster changes. On November 12th that year, this crew reunited to fly RwandAir Flight 205, a short flight from Rwanda's main airport in Kigali, the capital, to Entebbe International Airport, Uganda's largest airport. Despite the plane's capacity of 50 passengers, only 10 boarded Flight 205. With the 2 pilots, 2 flight attendants, and the engineer on board, there were only 15 people on board, leaving the plane nearly empty. This was not unusual at RwandAir, which ran as a public service and a national brand and has never made a profit since its inception in 2002. RwandAir Flight 205 landed at Kigali International Airport at 12:54 p.m. local time and began its takeoff roll. The CRJ-100 rolled off the runway after the crew accelerated both engines to takeoff thrust. However, it wasn't long before they discovered a problem. After turning the left engine to high power, the associated thrust lever became stuck and couldn't be moved. They may have decided to continue the takeoff because they believed they could unjam it with some vigorous wiggling. The first officer attempted to reduce thrust for the next phase of the climb after climbing at high power to a height of about 4,000 feet above ground level, but was still unable to move the left thrust lever. The left engine remained at 94% power, while the right engine reduced to 69%. The captain, too, was unable to move the lever. The pilot summoned the onboard engineer to the cockpit for more advice on possible solutions, and he arrived 30 seconds later. It didn't take him long to confirm what they already suspected. The thrust lever was stuck and couldn't be moved. The captain decided to return to the airport for an emergency landing, informing air traffic control and the passengers of their decision. However, when the cowl door was closed, the mechanic made a critical mistake. They failed to insert the locking pin. The exact cause of this could not be determined with certainty, but the consequences are well known. If not locked in place, the strut will work its way out of the spring clip due to the engine vibrations in hours or days. The strut will then frequently fall between the throttle gearbox and the fuel control unit, obstructing the movement of the fuel control actuating arm and thus jamming the entire throttle control system. Because the support strut was in the way when this happened on Flight 205, it became geometrically impossible for the fuel control actuating arm to move into any position commanding a fuel flow rate resulting in less than 93% power. While the captain flew a circle to lose altitude, the first officer and engineer tried and failed to move the thrust lever. Despite the high power setting on the left engine, the captain was able to bring the plane down, and Flight 205 landed on the runway at 1:06 p.m. after 11 minutes in the air. He had to use significantly more braking power than usual to slow the plane, and both tires on the left main landing gear burst, but the rollout went smoothly. Due to overheated brakes, they were required to evacuate on the runway following the landing. The pilots had to figure out what to do about the left engine that was still running. "How will we stop the engine then?" inquired the first officer. "We'll just think about it. It's a problem," the captain said. At that moment, the crew received a warning that their brakes were overheating. Indeed, the landing required so much braking power that parts of the main landing gear on the left side were melting. "Brake overheat," said the first officer. The crew shut off the right engine to reduce stress on the brakes, but they still couldn't get the left engine to spool down. The engine start button remained unpressed, which would have solved all of their problems. At the same time, the deflation of the tires on the left main landing gear resulted in a loss of braking effectiveness in both wheels on that side. When an aircraft tire deflates, the mode of least resistance shifts from rolling to sliding, rendering the brakes designed to keep a wheel from turning completely ineffective. Nobody on board knew it, but Flight 205 would be left with active braking pressure on only one of its 4 main landing gear wheels within a minute. The crew's primary concern was shutting down the engine. It was dangerous for ground personnel to approach the airplane with the left engine still running at full throttle, so no chocks were installed. Unsure how to handle the situation, the pilots decided that the passengers should be evacuated as soon as possible before things got worse. The captain summoned the lead flight attendant to the cockpit and informed him that because the left engine could not be shut down, all passengers would be evacuated through the plane's right side as soon as he gave the order. The flight attendant then instructed the passengers to remove their seatbelts and prepare to evacuate. Suddenly, the falling hydraulic pressure in the number 2 system, combined with deflated left main landing gear tires, reduced total braking force below the amount required to keep the plane from moving. The plane lurched forward, powered by the left engine and with only the right inboard wheel experiencing significant braking, and began a wide accelerating turn to the right. The captain yelled out the window for the ground crew to secure the chocks, but it was too late. The plane had spun out of control, and everyone on board was riding shotgun. As it ripped across the ramp, the CRJ-100 reached 42 kilometers per hour, sending ground personnel fleeing for their lives. As jet blasts swept across the apron, a ramp worker was thrown to the ground. The plane plowed through a row of heavy jet blast barriers before slamming headfirst into the cinder block wall of the control tower building, where it erupted into the first floor VIP lounge as the passengers held on for dear life. According to the post-flight investigation, the cable connecting the left thrust lever to the engine assembly had severed shortly after takeoff power was applied. A procedure in the aircraft's quick reference handbook titled "Thrust Lever Jammed" would have directed the pilots to shut down the left engine by using the left engine fire push switch, closing the fuel SOV, and allowing the aircraft's speed to be better controlled while landing. According to the procedure, this QRH procedure would have been performed at a safe altitude while considering terrain or other obstacles. The pilots did not follow the above procedure, instead returning to the airport immediately, landing at a higher than normal airspeed due to the left engine still producing takeoff thrust, making it difficult to stop the aircraft and requiring a much longer runway distance than usual. The aircraft was taxied back to the terminal while the left engine continued to produce takeoff power and the right engine idled. The pilots shut down the right engine when the aircraft stopped at the terminal building. The left engine was still operating at takeoff thrust, and the hydraulics were all turned off, as was standard procedure at the time. The strange crash of RwandAir Flight 205 falls into a rare category of accidents after the plane has already been parked. The passengers and even the pilots clearly believed that the worst was over just before the crash. What would you have done if you were on that plane? Let us know in the comments section. If you liked the video, here are 2 more videos that might interest you. Thanks for watching. Please leave a like on the video and share it with your friends.